fallout from last week's riot at the Capitol building has continued, with Republican Senator Pat Toomey the latest to call for Donald Trump to step down. A longtime supporter of Trump, Toomey is the second Republican senator to speak out regarding the president's position. While admitting he believed Trump had committed impeachable offences for inciting last week's mob, he suggested resignation was the only realistic option for Trump's departure before his term ends on January 20.
Okay, so Capitol Hill is absolutely on fire right now. Congress just issued an unprecedented ultimatum. They're demanding the immediate resignation of Donald Trump and his entire administration, not just Trump, the whole administration, cabinet members, senior officials, everyone. And if Trump refuses, Congress is threatening instant impeachment. This isn't a normal political disagreement. This isn't typical partisan fighting. This is lawmakers from both parties saying the Trump administration has become so dysfunctional, so corrupt, so constitutionally dangerous that the entire executive branch leadership needs to go, that everyone needs to step down and allow a transitional team to take over. That's an extraordinary demand, something we've never seen in American politics. And it's happening because multiple crises have converged simultaneously to create a moment where even some Republicans are saying Trump has to go. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us. Be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Donald Trump, the president of these United States, wants to be a dictator. He is trying to be a dictator. He said it multiple times this week. Today, he explained why a lot of people, I think in his own head, think he should be a dictator because he's stopping all the crimes.
So the line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, you know, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. But I'm not a dictator. I just know how to stop crime.
Ah, yes, Donald Trump, tough on crime. It just depends on who's doing the crime, doesn't it?
The specific numbers are staggering. More than 120 House members have gone public demanding resignation or immediate impeachment. That's over a quarter of the House, and at least 7 senators have joined them, including some Republicans. When members of Trump's own party are calling for his resignation, that's a political earthquake that signals that Trump has lost the support needed to govern, that his administration is viewed as illegitimate or dysfunctional even by people who should be his allies. The impeachment resolution they're threatening includes 7 articles, 7 separate categories of impeachable offenses: obstruction of justice for Trump's interference with investigations, abuse of power for his violations of constitutional limits, due process violations for his treatment of immigrants and others, trade overreach for his abuse of emergency powers, unlawful office creation for establishing positions without congressional authorization, bribery for his corrupt dealings, and tyranny for his overall pattern of authoritarian behavior. That comprehensive list of charges shows Congress isn't just upset about one thing. They're saying Trump's entire pattern of governance is unconstitutional. The viral speeches from lawmakers have been powerful. One representative said, "You crossed the line and now you need to go." That direct language, that simple ultimatum, it resonates because it captures what many Americans are feeling, that Trump has gone too far, that enough is enough. Another lawmaker said Congress wants action, not in hearings next month, but hours to resign or face impeachment. Hours, not weeks or months. They want Trump gone immediately. That urgency reflects how serious Congress views the situation, how dangerous they believe Trump's continued presidency is. The bipartisan support for this ultimatum is what makes it so unprecedented. Previous impeachments were largely partisan, Democrats voting to impeach Republicans, voting to defend. But this time, Republicans are breaking ranks. Some are publicly calling for resignation. Others are privately expressing support for impeachment. That bipartisan collapse of support is fatal for a presidency. Shows Trump can no longer govern, can no longer maintain even his own party's backing. The demand for the entire administration to resign goes beyond just Trump. Congress is saying the problem isn't just one person. It's the entire leadership team, cabinet secretaries who've enabled Trump's abuses, senior officials who've executed unlawful orders. All of them need to go. All of them need to be replaced by people who will respect constitutional limits. The demand for wholesale resignation of the executive branch is virtually unprecedented in American history. It's the kind of thing that happens in parliamentary systems where governments fall and new ones are formed, but in the American presidential system, it's extraordinary. Shows how completely Congress has lost confidence in Trump's administration. The reference to a transitional team shows Congress has thought about what comes next. They're not just saying Trump should resign and leaving it at that. They're proposing that an interim team take over, people who aren't politically aligned with Trump, who can restore normal constitutional governance, who can repair relationships with Congress and courts. That level of planning shows this isn't just rhetoric. Congress is actually preparing for the possibility of Trump's administration ending. The historic government shutdown is a major factor driving these demands. Trump has been using the government shutdown as leverage, holding services hostage to get what he wants, and Americans are furious. Federal employees aren't getting paid, government services are disrupted, all because Trump refuses to compromise. Congress is saying you can't use millions of people's livelihoods as bargaining chips, can't shut down government to pursue your political agenda. That kind of behavior warrants removal from office. The public anger over the shutdown has been building. Every day it continues. More Americans turn against Trump. More people decide he's unfit for office. And that public pressure is what gives Congress the political cover to demand resignation. They're responding to constituent demands for action. The Supreme Court defeats on executive power are another factor. Trump keeps claiming vast presidential authority, keeps trying to override Congress and courts, and the Supreme Court keeps rejecting those claims, keeps finding that Trump has exceeded his authority. That pattern of judicial defeat shows Trump doesn't respect constitutional limits, doesn't accept that there are checks on presidential power, and Congress is saying that pattern warrants removal. The wave of criminal indictments and legal betrayals among Trump's advisors shows the administration is corrupt when your top people are being indicted, when your lawyers are flipping and cooperating with prosecutors, when everyone around you is facing criminal charges. That suggests the problem isn't just bad luck or political persecution, it's actual criminality at the highest levels of government. And Congress is saying that level of corruption can't continue. All right, so let's dig into each of the 7 impeachment articles Congress is threatening, why the demand extends to the entire administration, and what mechanisms could force Trump out if he refuses to resign. The obstruction of justice article is based on Trump's interference with multiple investigations, the January 6th investigation, the classified documents case, the election interference probes. In each one, evidence shows Trump tried to obstruct, tried to hide evidence, tried to pressure witnesses. That systematic obstruction is impeachable because presidents can't use their power to prevent accountability, can't manipulate investigations into their own conduct. The Constitution requires that presidents enforce laws faithfully. Obstruction violates that duty. The abuse of power article addresses Trump's violations of constitutional limits, his use of emergency declarations to bypass Congress, his deployment of military forces without authorization, his withholding of appropriated funds. Each of these represents Trump exceeding presidential authority, acting as if he has powers he doesn't actually have. That abuse of power is exactly what the founders worried about when they created impeachment. They wanted a way to remove presidents who acted like monarchs, who refused to accept constitutional constraints. The Due Process Violations article covers Trump's treatment of immigrants and others, deportations without hearings, detentions without proper procedures, denial of legal representation. All of this violates the Fifth Amendment's guarantee that no one can be deprived of liberty without due process. Trump can't just decide constitutional protections don't apply to people he doesn't like. Can't implement policies that systematically deny people their rights. That's impeachable abuse of authority. The Trade Overreach article addresses Trump's abuse of national security authorities to impose tariffs. Trump has been declaring fake emergencies to justify trade actions that should require congressional approval. Courts have found these emergencies are pretextual, that Trump is using trade policy as a weapon without proper authorization that exceeds presidential authority over foreign commerce, violates congressional power to regulate trade. The unlawful office creation article is about Trump establishing positions and agencies without congressional authorization. The president can't just create new executive branch offices whenever he wants. Congress has to approve the creation of agencies and positions, has to appropriate money for them. Trump has been bypassing that requirement, creating positions and assigning people to them without proper authority. That's unconstitutional exercise of power. The bribery article appears to reference Trump's corrupt dealings. Maybe the allegations about soliciting foreign interference in elections, maybe evidence of pay-to-play schemes, maybe dealings with business partners that create conflicts of interest. The Constitution specifically lists bribery as an impeachable offense. Shows the founders were concerned about presidents who could be corrupted, who would use their office for personal enrichment. The tyranny article is the most comprehensive. It's not about specific acts, but about Trump's overall pattern of authoritarian behavior. His attacks on press freedom, his claims that he can do whatever he wants, his refusals to accept judicial or congressional oversight, his demands for personal loyalty over institutional loyalty. All of that creates a pattern that looks like tyranny, like someone who doesn't accept democratic constraints on power. The demand for the entire administration to resign is based on the conclusion that Trump's cabinet has enabled his abuses, that they've executed unlawful orders, that they've defended the indefensible, that they've participated in obstruction and constitutional violations. Congress is saying you can't just remove Trump and leave his enablers in place. You need to clear out everyone who participated in or facilitated his misconduct. That wholesale change is necessary to restore constitutional governance. The concept of a transitional team reflects how parliamentary systems handle government crises. When a government loses confidence, it falls, and an interim government takes over until new elections or new appointments can be made. Congress seems to be proposing something similar. That if Trump and his cabinet resign, an interim team of non-political officials could run the executive branch career civil servants, people without partisan agendas, just keeping things running until proper succession can occur. The role of the vice president in this scenario is complicated. Normally, if a president resigns, the vice president becomes president. But if Congress is demanding the entire administration resign, that presumably includes the vice president too. So the succession would go to the Speaker of the House. Or maybe Congress is proposing something different, some kind of non-political interim arrangement. The constitutional mechanics of that are unclear, but the fact Congress is even discussing it shows how serious they view the crisis. The political pressure tactics Congress is using include not just the threat of impeachment, but also the threat of using every legislative tool to make Trump's presidency untenable, refusing to pass any of his legislative priorities, blocking all his nominees, cutting funding for his initiatives, making it impossible for him to govern effectively. That sustained political warfare creates pressure for resignation, makes the presidency so painful that Trump might decide leaving is better than fighting. The public protests adding pressure are significant when protests erupt outside Congress and the White House, when large numbers of Americans are in the streets demanding Trump's removal. That creates political cover for Congress to act. Shows that demanding resignation isn't just partisan politics. It's responding to genuine public demand for accountability. The historic nature of demanding an entire administration's resignation can't be overstated. We've never seen anything like this. Presidents have resigned. Nixon did. But no Congress has ever demanded that an entire administration step down. That a wholesale change in executive leadership is necessary. That's parliamentary logic being applied to a presidential system, and it shows how severe the crisis is viewed. The 25th Amendment discussions provide an alternative mechanism for removing Trump. The 25th Amendment allows the cabinet and vice president to declare a president unable to discharge duties. If they do, the vice president becomes acting president. Congress has been discussing whether cabinet members should invoke the 25th Amendment, whether Trump's behavior shows he's unfit, whether they have a constitutional duty to remove him. Those discussions add to the pressure. Give cabinet members a mechanism to act without needing impeachment. Okay, so let's break down what this congressional demand means for Trump's presidency, for constitutional governance, and for democratic accountability. Point 1. More than 120 House members and 7 senators demanding immediate resignation or impeachment represents a collapse of political support that makes governing impossible. When a quarter of the House and a growing number of senators say you need to go, you can't pass legislation, can't get nominees confirmed, can't maintain political coalitions, Trump's presidency becomes untenable. Even if he refuses to resign, he can't function as president without congressional cooperation. That political reality creates enormous pressure. Point 2, the 7 articles of impeachment covering everything from obstruction to tyranny show Congress viewing Trump's conduct as comprehensively unconstitutional. This isn't about one mistake or one bad decision. It's about a pattern of behavior that violates core constitutional principles. That comprehensive indictment makes the impeachment case much stronger, shows systematic abuse rather than isolated incidents, makes conviction more likely if Congress proceeds. Point 3. The bipartisan nature of the resignation demand, including some Republicans, signals that Trump has lost even his own party's support. That's fatal for a presidency. Presidents can survive if their party backs them. Nixon survived for months because Republicans defended him. But when his party abandoned him, he had to resign. Trump is approaching that point where Republicans decide defending him is politically suicidal, where they break ranks to save themselves. Point 4. The demand for the entire administration to resign reflects Congress's conclusion that the problem isn't just Trump, but everyone who enabled him, cabinet members who executed unlawful orders, officials who participated in obstruction. All of them need to go to restore constitutional governance. That wholesale condemnation of the executive branch is unprecedented. Shows how thoroughly Congress has lost confidence in Trump's leadership team. Point 5. The combination of legal pressure, political pressure, and public pressure creates a situation where Trump's resignation or removal becomes increasingly inevitable. Each day brings more indictments, more lawyers flipping, more congressional demands, more public protests. That accumulation of pressure eventually becomes too much to resist forces, either resignation or impeachment and conviction. So what's the bottom line? Congress has demanded the immediate resignation of Trump and his entire administration. More than 120 House members and 7 senators going public with this ultimatum, threatening instant impeachment if Trump refuses. The demand includes not just Trump, but all cabinet members and senior officials. Congress saying the entire executive leadership needs to go, that a transitional team needs to take over to restore constitutional governance. The impeachment threat includes 7 articles: obstruction of justice, abuse of power, due process violations, trade overreach, unlawful office creation, bribery, tyranny, each article representing serious constitutional violations, together showing comprehensive pattern of presidential misconduct. Bipartisan support for the ultimatum showing Trump has lost even some Republican backing. When members of your own party call for resignation, that signals political collapse makes governing impossible, creates overwhelming pressure to step down. The demand reflecting multiple converging crises, the historic government shutdown Supreme Court defeats on executive power, criminal indictments of Trump's advisors, lawyers flipping and cooperating with prosecutors, all of it creating perfect storm that makes Trump's position untenable, viral speeches from lawmakers capturing public mood. You cross the line and now you need to go. The directness, the urgency, the demand for action in hours, not months, all resonating with Americans who are exhausted by Trump's chaos. The proposal for transitional team showing Congress has thought about succession, not just demanding Trump leave, but having planned for what comes next, interim non-political leadership to restore normal governance. The public protests adding pressure and giving Congress political cover to act street demonstrations, showing this isn't just elite opinion, it's genuine public demand for Trump's removal. The 25th Amendment discussions providing alternative mechanism cabinet members and vice president could declare Trump unfit, could remove him without impeachment. That option, adding to the pressure, the unprecedented nature of demanding entire administration resign. We've never seen Congress call for wholesale change in executive leadership. That's how serious the crisis is viewed, how thoroughly Congress has lost confidence. This is democratic accountability in action. Multiple branches of government, the courts through their rulings, Congress through impeachment threats, the public through protests, all saying Trump has violated constitutional norms, all demanding his removal. That coordination of constitutional resistance is how the system is supposed to work when presidents become tyrants, Trump facing impossible situation. He can resign and preserve some dignity, or refuse and face impeachment with bipartisan support. Either way, his presidency is effectively over. He's lost the political support needed to govern, lost the public confidence needed for legitimacy. The only question is whether he leaves voluntarily or is forced out. Capitol Hill on fire, representing the intensity of this moment, the urgency, the anger, the determination. Congress isn't making empty threats. They're preparing actual impeachment articles, organizing actual votes, ready to actually remove Trump if he doesn't resign. The demand for entire administration resignation showing this is about more than one person. It's about cleansing the executive branch of everyone who participated in constitutional violations, everyone who enabled Trump's abuses. That comprehensive approach to accountability is what the moment requires Trump's administration collapsing under weight of legal, political, and constitutional pressure. Each day bringing new crises, new evidence of wrongdoing, new demands for accountability, the accumulation becoming overwhelming, making Trump's removal inevitable, whether through resignation, impeachment, or 25th Amendment. This is what accountability looks like when all institutions align against presidential misconduct, courts ruling against him, Congress demanding his removal, the public protesting in streets, all saying the same thing: Trump has to go. And that unified constitutional resistance will eventually succeed, will force Trump out and restore democratic governance. Capitol Hill on fire, Congress demanding resignation, the entire Trump administration facing its end.